today we're going to cover some of the syllable contractions in Taiwanese, and we'll talk about Mandarin, and I'll introduce a new thing. Remember at the beginning of the semester, I did promise you we were going to talk about the pet name, the endearment form of English names. We wanted to know how you do an endearment form for Miranda. Remember? I was talking about, well, you call Jack, Jackie, and then how do you call Miranda? And we didn't know how to do it. After the lecture today, you should have some idea of how to do this. And we were talking about syllable contraction, and then I realized some of you didn't have an introduction of how syllables are like. So before we move on to the Taiwanese syllable contraction, just once again, and it doesn't matter what language, usually you can parse a word into syllables. Have you ever thought that Mandarin is a monosyllabic language? A monosyllabic language means that every single word is just one syllable. Do you think Mandarin is a monosyllabic language? 你们觉得中文是一个单音节的语言吗？不是。那有什么 word 是不是单音节的？学校。Well, you can argue that, well, 学 is a syllable and it has some meanings, but 校 has another syllable. But it's two syllables merged together and form a solid a phrase that means school. Like 生意 business, 生意. If it's just 生 by itself and then 意 by itself, it doesn't have that meaning of business, right? You have to merge, you have to combine these two syllables together. So Mandarin, although you can write every syllable in one character, 我们可以一个 syllable 写一个字，对不对？就是那个方块 character. But it doesn't mean that all Mandarin words are monosyllabic. 这样清楚吗？我们还是有学校啊、学生啊、皇冠啊这种双字词，还有三字词，甚至有四字词。所以 it's not a monosyllabic language. But if you want to do an anatomy about syllables, it usually has the most important part, which is, what's the most important part in the syllable? Nucleus. 就是那个最重要的核心. And nucleus is usually formed by the vowel. And then surrounding the nucleus, there could be some glides. Try to attach to that nucleus. So usually these glides are E and U. And then before and after this central 中南海权力核心, you have some consonants preceding this cluster. This is the onset. If it's before this nucleus cluster, it's the onset. And then if it's after it, it's coda. And we talk about in Mandarin, we only allow nasal, alveolar nasal and velar nasal as a coda. But in Taiwanese, just a review, how many coda segments are allowed in Taiwanese syllables? Yes, it's 7. Yeah. So how about in English? 英文允许的 consonant coda 有哪些？ There are like so many. And then you can have consonant clusters. Can you give me a word in English that the coda is actually a cluster of several consonants? String. String has a cluster onset, STR, right? A cluster onset. I want a word that has cluster coda. Dentist. ST, right? Dentist. How about strength? That's my favorite. Strength. Oh, that's not too long. We should find a syllable that has a long consonant clusters. But this just tells you English is more liberal about what can occur here and here. But Mandarin and Taiwanese, because we have tones, you can say ba. It's a very simple syllable, but then you change the tone, become ba, 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 ba. And then you have so many homophones. So you can derive dozens of different meanings. Just use one syllable structure, ba. Okay, that's why we can have such a limited template of syllables. But English has to allow such complex syllable structures in their language. So different language have different rules. Okay, that's the law of their language. Okay, so we did talk about there's type 1. There are several types of syllable contractions in Taiwanese. Type 1 is really easy. You delete something and then keep the most of it. 哪一个 syllable 的 onset? Second syllable 的 onset 被 chuck off, 对不对？它就只剩下 first syllable and then what's after the rhyme of the second syllable. And then you keep most of it. It looks like after you contract the syllable, you still want that syllable to be a possible syllable in Taiwanese. In Taiwanese, we don't allow lips, that kind of syllable. It will become two syllables. That's why you have to get rid of something. And this TS is in the way. Do you think deleting E would help? No. So you can do, in phonology, the most fun part is you can work out all kinds of possible output, all kinds of possible theories you have. But if you go through this, you will find that it's actually very reasonable to get rid of this guy, which is not a glide and not a vowel. So just get rid of it. It will get a very good syllable. So this is type 1. That's easy. Type 2 is also not too difficult. So if you look at lui, lo, lai, what's happening here? Think about what happened in the first syllable and then what happened in the second syllable. What happened in the first syllable? Le. What's deleted? Nucleus. The glottal stop is, of course, deleted, right? And then, okay, this is gone. And then usually the onset of the second syllable is also deleted. So you end up with L-O-A-I. I'm sorry, I'm reading the alphabet, but it's IPA. Now, but the output is actually, it's not lo-I. It becomes lui. And take my word for it. What happened is, well, O and A, they're like true vowels. So in a syllable, usually you want to have the most prominent vowel, and then the rest should change into a glide to make the power structure more solid. 你不要有两个头嘛，你想要有一个头就好了。So what happened is if you look at O and A, I'm going to show you a graph that, well, just let me ask you, A and O, which one do you think sound louder? O and A. A. And actually, you can just look by observing other people's mouth openness. When you're saying ah, your mouth is wide open. So there are more air coming out of your lung and make it louder. We're going to show you ah is actually the loudest sound, vowel. So, well, you keep the ah sound, and then O, well, you want to preserve as many segments as possible. So this O, in Taiwanese, we changed into a glide, and there are two glides in Taiwanese, yi and wu, just like English. It turns out that, well, if you look at the consonant inventory of languages in the world, there are so many, and then vowels, there are so many. But glides, usually they are yi and wu. And when we write them, personally, I like to write all the glide as wu and ya, because these are the true glide that we know. But some people like to write them as U and E because they actually sound very similar. And in this case, this author actually decided that, well, I'm not going to change it into the glide. I just want to write it as U and E. Okay, so in the data we're going to see today, you're going to see a lot of U and E next to the main vowel. But you can just think of them as glides. OK， 就是有的人会写 w 跟 i 啊，可是有的人就写 i 跟 u 而已。OK， 那我们来看下一个这个 case。那安呢？那 a, ne. What happened is you combine these two and become this. So what happened here? Anything happening in the first syllable? Nothing. But in the second syllable, this changed into E. Yeah, A changed into E. If you look at your vowel chart, it's actually not too big of a jump. 你还记得你们的 vowel chart 吗 ？E 在这 E 在这边，然后 A 在这边。So changing your A to your E, it's not too big of a difference change. So it's okay. Okay, so we're having some principles here. Well, you want to keep as many as possible and then make minimal changes to make the syllable a possible syllable in Taiwanese. Okay, and then 早, the O sound changed into a U sound. O and A. Okay, let me ask you, if you compare O and A, which one do you think sound louder? O, A, O, A, O, A. 你觉得哪一个比较大声 ？O, A, O, A. It feels almost like a tie, eh? Yeah, but in this case, usually we say boy instead of boy. There are two ways you can change this. The first one is keep this O and turn this into an E sound. It becomes boy. Or you keep this A sound and change this sound to a W sound, become boy. It turns out that because these two vowels turn to have a tie, and then this is the general pattern that happens. Okay, how about 后关? You want to get rid of the G sound, right? And then all this should be kept. You should have a H, O, U, An. But this is apparently too much. So it got deduced into just one. That's not too big of a change, too, right? So this is what happened in Taiwanese contraction. Preserve as much as possible and glide the vulnerable one. 那个比较弱的那个就会变成 glide. Okay? 好, this is the easy case. But type 3 is the one you should be worried about because it's a dual. You have to decide which one of us is the stronger one and which one gets to be kept. And if we just look at the data, we just look at E and U are the most vulnerable one. But what happens if they're fighting against each other? 即准, 即准 become 进. But why can it become 准? Have you heard of people saying 准? I actually have heard people saying 准. And so when you're having a tie, it could happen that the other form would surface. And this could be a dialectal difference. Maybe people in Yilan say 准, and then people in Tainan will say 进. It could be when there's a tie, you will find variations. But if we compare 了后, these are problematic, more problematic than I thought. 了后, you want to keep the O and O, right? But well, you only get to pick one. So you need to decide O and O, which one is louder, is more sonorant. 你觉得 O and O, which one is louder? O actually have a wider mouth opening. So you want to keep the O, you want to keep the O sound. But in Taiwanese, we simply don't have the wo. So this is frowned upon. In Taiwanese, we don't like the combination of wo. So it doesn't surface. And jide becomes ze. It doesn't have a. It also doesn't like the. It doesn't like the. Well, if it's E and A, which one is a lower vowel? E and A. A. So you want to keep A, right? And then you want to glide your E. But we just don't allow. When I put a star in front of a word, it means that the language doesn't like the combination. So and 修港 should become 修 ang. You get rid of the k, it should become this. But and o should become a w glide. But the language also doesn't like the one combination. So that one just wouldn't surface. And then the oh my god one is even more complex because this one should change into a one, but because we don't like the one combination, it changes into something. It should change into HAN, right? So if you look at number 39, the prediction should be, what would your prediction based on all the things we have talked so far? 你会预测39会变成什么? Any prediction? Which vowel would you keep? Yeah, you want to keep the off sound. I just told you it's the loudest vowel. So you want to keep the ang, and then the he should be kept. Now the question here is whether you keep this all and change into a w or not, right? But because I just told you this structure is not allowed, so it should become hang. But the input is hong, li hong pa, hong, and become all. So this is something that we cannot explain. I don't have an answer, and then so far I don't see other linguists proposing a solution to this. Okay, the take-home message for this whole thing, I can see that because some of you don't speak Taiwanese, so this could be, it should feel like it's an analysis of Tagalog or something. But the picture I want to give you is what phonologists are doing is we go into a language and we collect data like this. And we try to apply all the phonological knowledge that we know about human language. And we try to find the patterns. And well, if we're lucky, the theory we have can account for all the data that you can find in that language. That's beautiful. But what happens is sometimes we end up with some leftovers, like the oh my god case. We just cannot explain because it's an exception of our analysis. But it doesn't mean that our analysis is not valid. It can account for 99.9% of the data. And this is probably the only one that cannot be accounted for. So that's what phonologists are doing. And that's what I was saying, that if you want to work on phonology, you need to have a keen ear and you need to be very savvy about analyzing the sound patterns. And so all I want you to remember for Taiwanese is you need to remember there are several different types. So you need to remember that these structures are frontapant. 这几种结构在 Taiwanese 里头我们就是没有。And then oh my god, well you already know the oh my god case, okay? This we cannot explain with our data. And here to help you do the analysis, I'm going to introduce you one new thing in phonology. It's called sonority sequencing. Sonority sequencing. Sonority means that how loud you are. And sequencing just means that it's just an idea. The sonority profile of a syllable must rise until it peaks and then fall. So if you examine all the syllables you know in Mandarin, I bet you it's going to follow this rule that it should, the initial sounds should be, well, the middle vowel should be the loudest, and then it should decline both ways. I want you to pronounce these manner of articulation and tell me, can you tell me the ranking of their loudness? Their loudness. Which one do you think is the loudest? Vowel is the loudest. You can use alveolar stops, alveolar nasal, alveolar and fricative. Pick the same place of articulation and compare these 5 classes and tell me which one should be the second loudest and then the third loudest. Can you do a ranking of all these? Okay, so the vowel is the loudest. And then because glides sound similar to vowels, they're actually the second loudest. And then liquid, L and R, they're loud. And nasal, N. The problem for nasal is the air doesn't come out from your mouth, it comes out from your nose. So it actually decreases the intensity of the segment. And then fricatives, S, S. Well, at least you're getting these things rushing out from your mouth, but T, T, T is just considered the weakest of all. So that's the proposed sonority of these. But within the vowels themselves, remember I was talking about if it's a low vowel, your mouth is wide open, so it's louder. So within the vowels themselves, so the sonority scale for vowels is very easy for you guys now. The low vowel A has the loudest one, followed by A, and then O, and then U. For those vowels that you open your mouth really wide, they're the more sonorant, louder vowel. And then for E and U, they're less sonorant. That's why I want to introduce you a new English vocabulary. It's called, what's this? What's shiitake? Shiitake mushroom? Oh, okay. If you go to a regular supermarket in America, the mushrooms that you see are the fatty, chubby mushrooms. But the mushrooms that we use in Taiwan, 香菇, it's called shiitake. Shiitake mushroom. Okay, so if you're abroad and you want to get some of our 香菇, you should ask for that. And the other day I was just looking at a trunk. That, you know, those trunks have doors. It says eat shiitake, but the doors open here. So if I open the door, it becomes okay. But I want to talk about shiitake because this E is in a very interesting context. If you know Japanese, you should know that sometimes you don't pronounce all the vowels. So in this case, this E sound could be devoiced. It could be very weak. Usually you say shiitake, right? But you can also say shiitake, shiitake, shiitake. Do you think I actually pronounce the E sound? You can record me using prod. I can bet you that I didn't pronounce that E sound. I simply lengthen my shiitake. And this happens in Japanese. And they don't just devoice all vowels. There are two vowels. There are two vowels that's most vulnerable in Japanese and get devoiced. And guess which two? E and U. Yeah, they don't have the U sound, they have the U sound. Remember the unrounded And because they are high vowels, they're less sonorant, they're more vulnerable, they got devoiced. Okay, 这是 Japanese 里头的 vowel devoicing. Now, so in the syllable contraction, you have syllable 1, it could be CG, VG, C, and then the second one could be CG, VG, C again. And you try to preserve as much as possible. But you see, this first syllable has its own sonority sequencing, and the second one has sonority sequencing. So you want to get rid of anything that would destroy your sonority profile. That's why if you have a coda in the first syllable, or if you have an onset in the second syllable, 杀无声, and you want to keep all those glides and vowel, all the consonants must go in between. And then we worry about which one is more sonorant. You keep the most sonorant vowel and then make the last sonorant vowel into a glide. Okay, that's a general picture of syllable contraction. And the other constraints are what I'm talking about, that if a language simply does not like certain combination of sounds, it will naturally bend bend the sequence from surfacing, becoming what you know. So the structures that a language doesn't allow is relevant to this another new concept that I'm introducing today. It's just an idea that every language has its own phonotactic constraint. The meaning of constraint is just you're not allowed to do something, right? So when it's a phonotactic constraint, it means that it's a restriction on possible combinations of sounds. Or even broader, if a sound is could exist in a certain language. So let me ask you, do you think PK is a possible syllable initial cluster in English? No, it violates the phonotactic of English. 因为 English 有它自己的语言的法律，你这个很明显 violate 那个了。Okay? Every language just have their own phonotactics. Like in Mandarin, we don't allow bilabial nasal in the coda position, but it's allowed in the onset position. 我们不能有 m 在字尾嘛，在中文里头 but it can happen in the initial position. So that's our phonotactic. What's allowed in what position? What combination is allowed? That's the phonotactic constraint. And sometimes we just call it phonotactics. Do you know what some people call koala? They call them koala bear. 我们叫它无尾熊, but it has nothing to do with bears. This is a koala bear shocked. What do you mean I'm not a bear? I have all the qualification. 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 It's actually very similar. Okay. I know Taiwanese probably isn't the love of the favorite language. So we're actually moving on to English. Okay, guys, do you realize in qualification there is something similar to the syllable contraction in Taiwanese? You're changing the ko. Originally it's ko, ke, o, a, la, right? And then you change that o to w in qualification. There's also a gliding. Yes. Okay. Now, what we're talking about next is you would definitely be interested in is how to make an endearment form of someone, and it's called hypocorism. It's a reduction of a longer word to a single syllable. The point is it's always one syllable, and plus E sound. And the E sound could be, when it's spelling, it could be Y or IE. Like Jackie, you have the IE, right? But Jenny, you have the Y. But the sound is always the same. You add the E sound to it. Now, it's not just a person's name. It could be anything. Henry. Henry is a shortened name for what name? Do you know? So if you look at your names and then you find out that it ends with a Y or IE, it's very possible that it's a name, it came from a longer name. Yeah, so I would actually advise you, if you want to pick an English name, you should pick the full form to be put on your name card when you're in business. And then you can tell people, oh, my name is Jennifer. You can call me Jenny. Well, it's just an advice. Don't just pick Jenny. I mean, it's up to you. But I think it's more to the seniors like that. So you see, in England, they call television telly, right? Okay, so we're going to try this. Guys, it's your turn. Yeah, this is fun. Abigail and Martina, Marty, Patricia. Patty. Are there other ways? Tree. Patricia is special because the stress is not on the first syllable. Where is the stress of Patricia? It's in tree. So actually, Tricia is also a possible pet name for Patricia. And it can be Pat. And Pat could also be a nickname for Patrick. So when you call someone Pat, oh, I went out with Pat. And then you go, is it a Patricia or a Patrick? Yeah, and then Rebecca. Becca, Becky, and Martin. Marty. Yeah, it's not too much shortened there. Yeah. Elizabeth is interesting. Elizabeth, how many different variants? Lizzie, Liz, Beth. Yeah. Lizzie. Yeah, Liz and Lizzie. Betty. I never heard of Betty. Okay, so you have Abby, Marty, Tricia, Becca, Becky. Sometimes you need to do a reduplication of the consonants, but I'm not going to cover. I actually don't know when you have to have a double consonant. So, and Martin can be Tino. I actually have never used it before. So what we're focusing on today are these forms, those adding E sound. And you're going to see that sometimes you can add O sounds, like Paddington become paddle, Wellington become Lebanese is, and then how do Adelaide become adders. So E, O, or ERs. These are possible suffix to be added to the shortened names. But today, we're only going to introduce E-sounding names. And these E-sounding names are what we call suffixed hypochroristic form. So you have a full form, you shorten it. And the shortened form is what we call a trunctum. So Abigail, the trunctum is ab. And then you add an E, you add a suffix onto it to make it the hypocritic form, hypochoristic form. And the rule, okay, this is a rule I'm going to teach you, and then you're going to work on some new words yourself. So it starts from, guess from the left of the right or the right of your full form. If you want to take a monosyllable, you take it from the left edge of the full form, and the trunctum must obey the phonotactics of English. So when there are several consonants that you can cut, you need to decide, is PK a possible ending, a possible coda in English? If yes, I can cut it here. Keep as many consonants as possible as your coda, but it has to observe, it has to conform to the phonotactic of English. So let's try these. So the trunctums can also be called bare trunctum. They don't always surface. We don't call Abigail Ab. You know, you don't use that trunctum by itself. You usually add E onto it. But so it doesn't always surface. You don't always pronounce the trunctum by itself. And they need to be able to stand alone. I already said that. Okay, here's your practice. So you have a full form, and you need to find out what the trunctum is, and then add an E sound. Let me just tell you, these are all the E suffix words. So write down all these words, and then start picking the trunctum for them, and add the E sound to it. So Harry, it could be a hero. If you look at hero, it's a CV, 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 and then this. We want monosyllable, right? So you want H, A, and then all the consonant after it. And is R a possible coda in English? R 是一个 English 可以接受的 coda 吗? Yeah. So it's H-A-R-I. But in spelling, you spell it as H-A-R-R, and then I become Y. But the pronunciation is Harry. What's the trunctum for hero? H-A-R, right? Just H-A-R. H-A-R. And this is H-A-R-I. And well, for now, you can just write H-A-R-I. But in reality, you spell it as H-A-R-R-Y. Jennifer 的 trunctum 是什么 ？Jan. No, it does surface. 有没有？有时候我们会叫 Jan. Yeah, but we don't call hero hair. No. Josephine. Josie. Yes. Phil and Philly. There's actually a hamburger sandwich looking. Do you know Philly? It's like in Taiwan you have the 大亨堡的那个 bun， 然后放了很多那个炒好的很肥很 fatty 的那个牛肉。Oh, it's so good. Philly's fatty and good. Ronald. What's the trunk term for Ronald? Ron. That does surface. Ron. You can call someone Ron. And then the nickname would be Ronnie. Yes. And then Rudolph. Rude. No, it's not a good trunk term. You don't want to tell someone else rude. Rudy. Randy. Andy. What could be the full form for Andy? Andrew. Yes, Andrew. Okay, any question about this? Yeah, sometimes you need to do a double consonant and then change this to Y. Jenny is also spelled with the Y. Feely, I think usually spelled with the IE. Or Y is okay. Y. And then Ronnie, Rudy. Okay, if I ask you to do this, all you have to write is just the E suffix. You don't have to tell me the right spelling. It could be not rule governed. Okay, are you ready to move on to the next level? This is harder. Significantly harder. There's more than one consonant after your first vowel. And you have to decide which consonants can be kept, which ones have to be left behind. Okay, I'll give you, this will take a while. We'll do one together. Let's try this. I don't know anybody by this name. Edmund. Oh, it's a character in Narnia. Okay, what's the trunk term for this? No, just the trunk term. Ed. Why not ed? Well, you don't have any coda in English that ends with DM. So, it's just ed. And then Eddie. Okay, and then you do the rest. You have to decide whether you want to take R and N. Or is LB a possible coda in English? Is LB a possible coda cluster in English? 你觉得 LB 有吗？有这个吗？ Yeah, elbow, elb. Huh? Elbow 有个 O 了。Can you give me a word that ends with LB? I remember there is bulb. Oh yeah. 那个 light. We don't have any light bulb. In there, light bulb. Okay, do that. This is testing you how much you know about the consonant clusters. Hildred. LD and R. Do you keep all of them? Can you have LDR? Guys, think about the sonority sequencing. You see, the sonority, it should be loud and then not loud. But if it's a L, the you have liquid and stop. Very good. And then liquid. So, yeah, if you don't know whether it exists in English, you can sometimes you can use the sonority sequencing as a secondary strategy. So let me tell you, you should get rid of that R. So this become Hildy. Is it Abby or Abry? Abby, because they don't allow BR in the coda position. Did you finish all of this? I want you to try. Patricia is petty. Give me an English word that ends with RN. Barn, yes. So RN is a possible coda. So check your answers. So Abby could be so confusing. It could be from Abraham or Abigail. And Pat could be from Patrick or Patricia. LB, Arnie. Arnie, that's a cute name. Eddie. Edward. What's the abbreviation for Edward? It's still Eddie. Yeah. Edmund. There is sometimes spelled with the M-O-N-D. Edmund. Melvin. Give me a word that ends with the LV, right? 我们自己 Of course, it's not LF, it has a S after it, but it means that this is a possible combination. Can you think of other words other than ourselves? Evolve. Oh, evolve. Oh, evolve could work. 演化那个字有没有 ？Evolve. You do have an LV, so it's Melvin. Melvi. Okay. Now you're good. So what's for Miranda? Miranda is tricky because Miranda, where is the stress for Miranda? It's rain. So most of these cases, the stress is on the first syllable. So you chunk the first syllable. Okay. But Miranda, could it be Randy? Oh, I have to confess I don't know. But if we do M, it's Murray. Me. But, okay, the reason why we pronounce Miranda schwa in the first syllable, M, is because the stress is on the second syllable. But once you chunk it, you have to shift your stress to me, so it becomes Miri. Miranda. You pick M-A-R, right? Not Miri. Mary. Oh no, this can't be right. Miranda become Mary or okay, I have to check it. I'm sorry. We still don't know what we should call Miranda. She should just never have an endearment form. According to what I have taught you, it should be Austri, but we don't call them Austri. I'm sorry, we don't call you Austri. So we call them Aussie. Well, this is what I tell you. We work out 95% of the cases, but there's still weird cases that we can't explain. This happens everywhere in biology, in history. You can build up a theory, but you can account for 95% of it. But our task is to tell you what are the exceptionals, and maybe someone better can work out a better theory and solve that. The next thing we're going to do is what we call a Mcgurk Effect. It's another illusion. Oh, speaking of illusion, remember I told you that in Japanese you can delete or devoice the high vowels, the E and U vowel in Japanese. So what happened is if you resynthesize a word, in Japanese, well, you make it sound like it's a Japanese word, but it's not a real word. You do a CV, CCV. And remember I told you in Japanese they don't allow consonant coda. Well, they allow nasals, but not other consonant codas in their language. So what happened is if you put a pop, oh, let's say I say pop. Oh, okay. What they put in the exam is in the experiment is like this. They recorded someone saying ebuzo, and then gradually cut this boo sound. Let's say it was originally second, and they gradually changed it into 150, 150, and 0. And they played this to English speakers and Japanese speakers. So English speaker, and then the question you have to answer as a subject is there a vowel between b and z? So all the English speaker goes, yes, yes, no. So if you're making the segment shorter and shorter, eventually they go, no, there is nothing between b and z. But guess what Japanese people tend to do? Yes, 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 yes. They have the illusionary vowel. Because in their first language, it's not allowed to have a consonant clusters like that. So they naturally want to insert something, illusion. Now I'm talking about another illusion which you are going to have. I'm pretty sure about this. So I'm going to play something. And before I play, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just use your ear and hear this. Have you heard of Mcgurk Effect before? Okay. Okay, if you haven't, that's good. So you have to close your eyes. And then when I tell you to open your eyes, you need to, so when you close your eye, you need to think about, oh, what's the sound that that person is pronouncing? And then when you open your eye, ask yourself again, what's the sound that person is pronouncing?
Ba, 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 ba.
So what happened? When you close your eyes, it's bilabial ba, ba, right? And then when you open your eyes, it becomes, what did you hear? I have ga, da. Yeah, it becomes something that's like in between, right? So, well, if it's English speakers, 95% of them will hear da when they open their eyes, 95%. And then other 5% would have ga or da, 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 da. This illusion will work if you use both of your visual cues and your audio cues. Your eyes are telling you it's not a ba. And your ear is telling you that's a ba. So they get into this fight. And then eventually your perceptual system picks something in between. It could be da or da. So this is what we call a Mcgurk Effect. And I think this person is called McDonald. He's a graduate student at Mcgurk's. So sometimes it's called Mcgurk-McDonald Effect. So it's published in Nature. It's just how when human speech, when humans are communicating, we tend to use both visual and audio cues. And if they correspond to each other, perfect. If they don't, it could be very damaging to your perception. But they found a very interesting fact that this doesn't work as well on Japanese speakers. Why? Mandy, do you know? Oh, is Mandy here? Oh, yeah. Or the rest of you guys, can you guess why it doesn't work as well for Mandarin, for Japanese speakers? I heard, okay, this is what they wrote in the paper, that Japanese people, when they're speaking to others, they don't necessarily look at their face. Is it not polite to actually, yeah, it's okay to, so where do they look? Neck? Or some people, there's a tip that if you feel nervous talking to someone, you can look at their eyebrow, the center of their eyebrow. So they're not actually paying attention to other articulatory cues. And that's why, I mean, according to the paper. So that could be a reason.
Ba, 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 ba.
有时候还是会有嘎嘎出来，对不对？ Originally, I want to talk about Pig Latin next time, but we still have some time, so I'm going to introduce you. It's a very interesting language game. It can become the secret language of our class. You can write English in that way. Nobody will understand us. It will be a secret language. So this is it. Okay, Pig Latin. So once you know once you know more about linguistics, there are so many games you can play. This is also a language game. It's called Pig Latin. It's not real Latin, but you can make any word sound like Latin. This is how it works. So if a word starts with a consonant, C initial, consonant initial word, you transfer the onset consonant, the preceding consonant from the word. Well, I'm sorry, this is bad. You transfer the onset consonant to the end of the word and add A to that word. So if it's Pig Latin, pig will become ikpei, and this become etenlei. So I'm teaching you to speak ikpei etenlei today, okay? Now, Let's try this. Now try these. Try to write it down. Try to write it down. In the exam, I'll give you words, and you will have to convert it to Pig Latin. It's fun for nerds. My dog become. Oh, okay. Well, this is your test. Don't focus on the orthography. Focus on the pronunciation. So if you don't look at my, my actually is a followed by a diphthong I, right? So it should be I, my, I may, all day, right? Now but the spelling should stay. The spelling should stay. So it become I may all good day. Yeah. And then do the rest. Well, when you pronounce it, it should be the real pronunciation. When you pronounce body, you don't say body, right? It's adi. Adi bay. Spelling should stay, but the pronunciation should follow the IPA transcription. You could be tricky, eh? You. Now transcribe you. You 应该用什么 IPA 去 transcribe? You have you, right? You. So you want to keep this and move this to A. So it's u, yay. You. But you move this E to u, yay. U, yay. U, yay. Atin K. The C in the original pronunciation is cutting, right? So it's the k sounding. So you add A to the k sounding and move it to the back. And atin. How do you pronounce this? Atin K. This NG is an ingma. So you do atin K. Atin K. We're good? So this is consonant initial words. Let's try the vowel initial words. Let's start with monosyllabic words. So if I start with the vowel, just add way after it. So it become it way, army become army way, egg become egg way. That's easy, right? But what if it's a multisyllabic? It's still the same. It's mostly the same. Anything that's unusual? Archery way, ending way. I think that's the same. But what happens is when it's a compound word. When it's a compound, a definition of compound word is it's two words combined together. It could be a combination of noun and vowel, adjective and noun. It could have different words. So when this happens, you need to treat them as separate words. So bedroom become, let me double check. What do you think bedroom should become? I don't have the answer here. So bed itself should have its own transformation. And then room has to have its own transformation. Why don't you try these? Compound words. Edbe, umre. And toothbrush, wallpaper, bathtub. Oh, and the next two are not really compound words. I rock. But this is a compound word, so it's I may, Earl Gay. Oh, okay, here's the problem. Friend. How do you convert brush? Brush. Interesting. So you're moving b and r together. Yes. So this tells you what we're teaching you about consonant clusters, onset, and coda. It does exist in speaker's mind that that's a unit. You don't just move b and left the r there. B and r is in it together. It's an onset of brush. So you need to move b and r together. So it becomes whoosh. Is it whoosh? Ush. Pronunciation should be kept. Brush. We don't say brush. Ush spray. Osprey. So girlfriend become Earl Gay and Frey. Yes. Okay, let's check. Earl Gay and Frey. And remember the pronunciation. Just try to remember what the vowel was in the original form. At bay, anything that's off. You see, when you write like this, nobody understands. It's just a secret language. When you graduate, maybe I should give my speech in Pig Latin. You see, it's easy for you to produce Pig Latin, but do you think it's equally easy for you to perceive Pig Latin? You have to do the conversion online. Immediately. No, I don't know how to give a speech in Pig Latin, so you don't have to practice the perception.